if you have 2 days to do something, you got one chance at one idea.
So one of the things I got to ask, because I know this is a real thing, especially in your world, like Sunday is always coming. You've got deadlines, you've got to produce. And I know as creatives and the creatives watching, there's always that issue of, timelines and budgets or something that's just a constant real pressure. And so how do you stay creative, especially, and lead a team health in a healthy way forward under that pressure, that constant pressure of deadlines and budgets?
Small businesses wrestle with it as well. Churches are, I think the church creative industry is just one of the toughest areas to work in, because depending on your leader, there's going to be, I know churches that have a Wednesday, we find out all the information, you got to have everything ready the next day or 2 days, and they're using volunteers. So
the only other place or business I can think of like that is Saturday Night Live, where it's just like,
and it's a week, and it's a week, and they have a process down for it pretty much. But yeah, it's hard. I'll say this, the less time, and I would say this to any creative leader that's leading or any leader that's making a decision about a project, the less time you have to make a project or make a product, the less opportunity you have to fail. So if your timelines are short and fast and it's in 2 days, me as a creative, I'm going to go to what I know. And I know I'm going to go to what I know works for this brand. If that continues to happen every week, week after week, it's a fast turn. It's a fast creative endeavor. It's a fast shoot. It's a fast whatever. I'm going to go with what I know. The more you do that, the more then ultimately you fall into the things looking the same, feeling the same, and no risks are being taken. Now, can you do a big risk in 3 days and it be successful? Absolutely. If you do that week after week after week after week, you're going to start making some withdrawals, and
burnout.
Your creatives are going to want more time. Your creatives are going to want more, like, man, I just want to fail, or I want to try something new and see if it'll work, but it's a little bit expensive. And if I can't pitch you a storyboard, when things are doing 3 days, storyboards are out the window.
Right.
I'm going to go with what I
This really
know.
goes back to what we were talking about before about culture. And if you've built a healthy culture, feeding a healthy team, like, you're going to be able to turn better content faster. And I've heard this expressed before from some other leaders that, culture trumps strategy under pressure. So, and that's what you're saying. You're going to go with what you know. The culture is going to take over. You don't have time for strategy. It's like, you're going to move forward, and the culture is going to shine. Well, this is the time to shine.
and a layer deep into the culture, how can you be strategic with, okay, I'm coming into a workplace, and I know it's a deadline every week, and I know it's a rush, and I'm hired to do this, and what do I do? Well, if my tendency is to go to what I know, then I've got to replenish that bucket that I go to. So as a creative, if I know I'm walking into an industry that's like, this is a 3-day turn every single time, you don't have times for this, you don't have time to go do a storyboard, you don't have time, then how am I replenishing on my own time, or even the organization's time? How am I make sure that I'm researching new ways so that I'm not thinking about it when I can go to it. So there's ways to combat that. There's
like
ways
building muscle reflex almost.
Yes, there's ways to combat I'm going to go to what I know every single time, because my industry that I'm in is constantly fast turns. Okay, well then I need to replenish this.
When I'm constantly learning, there's always new things that you know. So, yes.
But it's those little things. Yeah. It's that one YouTube video that you're like, ooh, I like that piece that they did in the YouTube video that I can use creatively for the next fast turn. Okay, I'm going to try that, or I'm going to do that. When you have 2 months to work on something, there's pivot. I'm going to research some things, and even just on creating ideas and writing, and the failure in just writing content, you have ideas to do that and to try a new way. It allows you just to grow as you try new things and have the space to fail a little bit. And I think that's so important. I think both are needed. Both are going to happen. One for sure is going to happen, because obviously you and I know as creatives, There's oftentimes not an appreciation for the time of a shoot or for how long things take in an edit. And I'm not blaming anybody. That's not a us and them statement. It's a, hey, we're in this together. I'm gonna educate you. Go, hey, if you want this in a fast turn, here's kind of the quality that may come from it. But as an editor, I'm gonna do my best to make sure that it looks far and beyond expectations. But yeah, I think the less time we have, the less time there is to fail, the less time there is to pivot. If you have 2 days to do something, you got one chance at one idea. And we're going to execute it and get it there. And I'm typically, as a creative, I'm going to drift to what I know than trying to think outside of a box because I know my timeline is short. And sometimes I will, and I'll try something new. Our team we'll try something new. But week after week after week after week of doing that, and the anxiety that oftentimes comes with, oh my gosh, this is due on Sunday. We're just thinking of the great idea on a Thursday. Man, and I want to make sure I get home to my wife and kids. There's just a tension there. And to be able to manage that and understand, okay, this is a little bit of our culture is fast turns. And a little bit of and some of our culture is, hey, we've got some longer times to turn this. That's what you're missing in the fast turns, in my opinion.
Yeah, I imagine there's probably some rule where you're like, you never want fast turns to go more than 10% or 20% of what you do. Otherwise, there's a red warning light that goes on or something. They need to make some changes. I'd imagine there's probably some healthy balance there that
I think that's part of the tension to manage. It's not a problem to solve. It's a tension to manage. And with that tension, you can try to solve it some ways. In some ways, it is what it is. And I think churches wrestle with that. Church creatives wrestle with that, especially if you're a one-man band.
Yeah.
I know a lot of guys at churches, and they're the only person, and they've got 3 quick turns. Well, if they've got 3 quick turns that they've got to execute and produce, they've got their 5 favorite fonts. And they know these fonts are going to work every single time. They know it's not going to question anything, but do I want to research anything that's just got a little bit of uniqueness to it? That's the piece where they need to have that on their bag ready to go, rather than reacting in the moment of a quick turn or 2 projects and quick turns and fast turns. It's hard. There is nothing easy about it. It's hard, but there's ways to combat it. And there's also just the acknowledgement of knowing that when I do a fast turn, there's just not a lot of room for error.
It's like setting that clarity in the uncertainty of how, things are going to happen.
Yeah.
That's good. I got to shift gears on you a little bit. I'm thinking, here's Brad, almost 2 decades of doing this.
You keep saying almost 2 decades. Man.
Almost 2 decades. That's 20 years, Brad.
No, at 17, I'm closer to the 15. A decade and a half.
This is going to air for, there's going to come a day where this episode, it's 2 decades, Brad.
Golly.
No, okay. There's a reality to life, of course, in creatives that, you're green, you're apprenticed, you're trained, you contribute, you're on the team, and one day it's time to move on. And suddenly the team loses a member. They go somewhere else or something, other opportunity or whatnot. How have you learned, what wisdom would you have to share around for the business owner or the creative on the team or whatnot? Like how do you maintain the health of the team when it's time for one team member to move on and you have to bring someone to replace them? Like, is there some, we know what they do in the military. There's like all these, ceremonies and honorable ways to like move people on and to move them up and so forth, whether they transfer to another department, left the team entirely, something, tragic happened, hopefully not, but there's of course life. So you pour into people and one day they move on. It's the nature of how the game, Craig was here with us from Matchstick. He said, typically there's a lifespan of like 3 years and you just expect that there's going to be a turnover or something new.
Agree with that.
So what would you have to say? And then how would you recommend either the mindset or best practices, processes, whatever, around making sure that the through line of the health and the culture is maintained?
Well, the team is made up what makes your team great is the individuals and their uniqueness, their perspective, their personalities. That's what makes the team, and your team continues to evolve because of the people that are on it, and it continues to evolve and hopefully get better because of the new people that are on it. So for me, when somebody leaves and decides to move on, I get to evaluate the team and look and go, do we need to hire somebody different that can do something different, based on where culture is heading, based on the new ways of doing things in social media, based on storytelling, based on, there's so many different things that it does allow you to pivot. So
would you say it's the way you should look at it as an opportunity and not a loss,
There's an opportunity there. I think there's definitely a loss of, there's a friendship there. Yeah. There's things that this person can create and produce, and there's a reliability of what they get to do. And there's the relationships that they've developed with the churches and the ministries, that it's just a well-oiled machine and they're just crushing it. To replace that is hard, and specifically the relationships, it's just hard. But there is an opportunity. It does allow you to pivot. It allows you to rethink your strategy as a team. Not your mission, but what are the projects we're working on? What do we need to, stop doing? What do we keep doing? What do we start doing? Right. Those are three questions just in leadership in general, as a team and as a leader. Hey, what are we doing right now? Yeah. What do we need to keep doing? What do we need to start doing that we're not doing right now? And
what's working, what isn't? Yeah,
totally. And but when it comes to the people, and I think that's what's great. Over 17 years, I've seen us evolve and move with the people that were a part of the team. I remember we had an opening for an editor, and I wanted to move into 3D world a little bit. I wanted to move into cinema. Yeah. And I interviewed a guy, Taylor Cox, great guy. And he showed me his editing work. He showed me his MoGraph work. And I saw a piece that he did that was 3D. It was just a small piece. And I asked him, do you want to do more of that? And he says, yes, I'd love to do more of that. And I said, because that's where I want to be heading with this team over the next 3 to 5 years. And it was just a great connection. And we hadn't had that. We hadn't had a lot of 3D artistry in the team. And it was a big pivot for our team that almost, some people are leaving, and then it takes it to a whole nother level because, hey, we're evolving, and that skill set is a great add to our team. It's hard when you lose guys. And I'll say one thing that we're learning is our churches, they can contract out and they don't have to go in-house to us. A lot of times we can't, based on load, sometimes we can't serve all the ministries and the churches. But what's great about some of the guys that have left our team and have moved to contract roles and started their own businesses is that they understand the culture. They understand, they've lived it. And so it's an expansion of the team in certain, sense of the word. You as a leader, you start to lose maybe, for lack of a better word, that creative control, and that's even a negative way of saying it because you're constantly working with a client, constantly working with a ministry or a church. But what I see as a positive is, man, we've got great people that are coming out of here that have their businesses, and now churches have more folks that they can leverage and use. And we can continue to fine tune and go, okay, but this is what we're going to continue to be great at. This is what we're going to continue to do really well and continue to get better at. So, I think that that change in personnel, and hopefully it's positive.
It can be really healthy.
Hopefully it's not a surprise.
Yeah.
You don't want to be a surprise in your one-on-ones, and you're asking about what do you want the next year, 2 years, 3 years. There's guys like, Will, who I think you've interviewed.
Well,
we knew
we don't like to use the word interview, Brad.
Sorry.
Conversation, actually.
In your conversation with Will, he was somebody that I was so grateful to have for 4 years. I was grateful to have for the time that we had him because he was such a talent. And I knew he was going to start his own company someday. So, and now we still get to work with him. All these guys, we still get to work with. And I don't think I hope that there is never you're ending on a bad note. If people are working for our team and for North Point in general, we want it to be the best job it's ever been. We want to be for you. And I always tell guys, I hope you are wildly successful when you go contract and do other things. I want you to be wildly successful in whatever you do. And hopefully you can take a piece of what you've learned here in North Point Media and North Point Creative Services and just go and take your talents and just go serve the world.
It's a beautiful perspective to have, really pouring into someone, not having to this sort of hoarding mentality about your mind and you got to stay, but actually equipping them and empowering them to be better at who they are and what they do. That's really cool.